a lot is to be made of Trevor Lawrence. A lot is expected of Trevor Lawrence. But when we're looking at what this Jacksonville Jaguars team, does it begin and end with Trevor Lawrence? You know, in the top 100, the NFL, you know, the players vote on the top 100. Trevor Lawrence was the 14th quarterback. It's a jury of his own peers. Tua was over him, according to players. So while Trevor Lawrence certainly looks the part, he was drafted to be the part, and at times he has flashed to show us that he could be the part, is he actually the part? If a jury of his own peers is saying you're the 14th best QB, is that a sign that, you know, maybe Trevor Lawrence isn't what we thought he was? Or is it just players hating? Sometimes players hate. Players are not unbiased. So it could be the hate that people assume Trevor Lawrence is going to walk into this league and be, you know, the next Andrew Luck to come in there and take over and be that dynamic off rip. And it hasn't really worked out that way. We can talk about the bad coaching staffs. We can talk about Urban Meyer. But Trevor Lawrence at times, especially if we want to look at last year, it was a season of two halves for Trevor Lawrence. The first half of the year, he was basura. Absolutely basura. Second half of the year, he was significantly better across the board. And that's what helped propel this offense to be better than what they looked like in the first half, to take this team to the playoffs. Trevor Lawrence with another year under the belt, Doug Peterson, all of that, you see it here, 9-8. And again, it mentions here, they peaked in the second half. That first half was trash. Now, maybe that's a hangover from having Urban Meyer. Maybe. But the talent didn't change that much from the Urban Meyer year to last year under Doug Peterson. Calvin Ridley obviously might be the most significant addition. The draft was okay, but I don't see anybody really flashing here. But in terms of offseason, you have to go Calvin Ridley. Problem is, Calvin Ridley hasn't played since 2021. Everyone says he looks good, but I'm going to hold off because dude literally hasn't played in almost 2 years. 2 years to the date, damn near. So Calvin Ridley, if he can resume what he was a guy that, again, another guy that looked the part, potentially could be a number one wide receiver. At first, it looked like he was just piggybacking off of what Julio was, all the attention Julio was garnering. But even when Julio was out, he was able to step up and put numbers up. So Calvin Ridley has the look of a guy that could be a number one wide receiver. Now, is he going to be a top tier number one? I don't think so. But he could certainly be a top half of the league number one. 32 teams. You telling me he can't be the 16th best number one wide receiver? Now you pair him with Christian Kirk and, you know, they got some weapons, Jones Jr. and all of that. Like there's some things there that they could work on. Let's go down to the depth chart here for the Jaguars. So we understand they got Trevor Lawrence. That's their franchise QB for better or for worse. Etienne healthy is a problem. He is dynamic. He is a game breaker. Okay. Now you have Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. They were finally able to find something. A team was able to unearth Evan Ingram. Again, this was more in the back half, that second half of the season. But Peterson finding a way to get Evan Ingram involved, that also was a huge key to opening up this offense. So when you have Trevor Lawrence and you have Etienne and you have potentially a really good 1-2 with Ridley and Kirk, and now, you know, you got Zay Jones. I mean, you know, but I think the key here is Evan Ingram. When they go 22, it looks good. It looks good to me. Now, offensive line could be a thing here. Offensive line could be a thing here. We know dude who's facing the suspension. He got caught up. But despite that, I wasn't even impressed with the line at that point. It's a run blocking line as opposed to a pass blocking line. So to me, if Trevor Lawrence is going to take a step, the ball's got to come out quicker. The ball has to come out quicker because I'm not sure if this O-line is going to hold up in terms of pass blocking. Run blocking, I think they'll be fine. They do a lot of zone stuff anyway. But in terms of pass blocking, pass pro, Trevor Lawrence got to make sure that rock is coming out quick. And I think if Calvin Ridley flashes like he did in 2021, I think the Jags are open for business. And I think the offense could be so good that it can overshadow what they're lacking defensively. I think that's the biggest bugaboo if you're looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Josh Allen, the better Josh Allen, if you will, he's a guy that is really good. Is he scary? Does he command doubles? Is he a guy you have to specifically game plan for? In my opinion, no. But he's earned the right to be that guy on this line. The issue is Trayvon Walker. Will we ever get to see what's expected of Trayvon Walker? High draft position, very raw prospect. Hasn't really shown enough to validate the draft position. Inside, I think they'll be fine on the interior. I think Robinson Harris is actually underrated, in my opinion. I've always liked his steez. But I think the problem is Josh Allen will be fine. Trayvon Walker, they need him to be more than fine. They need him to be who he was drafted to be, or at least a semblance of it, because he hasn't even looked to be that. So I think that's where I'm at with the Jaguars. They're going to depend heavily on their offense. The defense, I think their strength is in the back four. Maybe you could throw in the back seven, but I would say their strength is actually in the back four. I like their secondary way more than I like their line. So, I don't think that's a recipe for success, defensive success. But just in the sense of you have to nitpick here. I'm nitpicking, but I think the strength of this defense is definitely in the back four. There's more names up front. On the front four. Linebackers is okay. Olakun is all right. But, in terms of names, there's more names up front, but I think the actual strength of this defense is in the back four. If the strength of the defense is back four, the defense is Swiss cheese. Yeah, because it should be in the front. Interior lines, more so, but just a front four or front three, if you're silly enough to do a 3-4. The front four, to me, should be where the strength of your defense is, because it's the place closest to the rock. It starts there. If you can be disruptive right where the ball is, I'll take my chances there. Then, I have no pass rush, no push in the middle, and I got to pray that my DBs can cover for, 6 to 7 seconds every play. So I think that's where the problem lies in Jacksonville. I could be wrong. If you feel I'm wrong, light it up in the chat, or if you're catching this on the replay, light it up in the comments. But in my opinion, I think the Jags, their success obviously is dependent on the offense because they have the skill position players now, especially if Calvin Ridley goes back to his 2021 form with damn near 2 years off. I think the O-line potentially could hold up, but again, I'm just not a fan. I'm just not a fan of that O-line, but I think they'll be good enough. And this division is bad enough on the back end with the Colts and the Texans potentially both being really mid that I think the Jaguars can still take this division. So let's go to where we at? Over-unders? Yeah, over-unders. Okay. Vegas has Jacksonville 9.5 games. 9.5. Over seems to be the big favorite here. Plus, minus 150 is that's 1.5. That's a pretty good favorite. So the question is 9.5 wins over under. Are you taking the Jags over under 9.5 wins? Because again, we look at that strength of schedule. They have the 12th easiest schedule. So amongst their division, they have the hardest schedule. They have a first place schedule, right? So 12th easiest schedule despite having a first place schedule. 9.5 is the line. They were 9-8 last year. Are they one game better than last year? Let me know in the comments.